Welcome, fellow humans. Today I'm going to tell the story of the first time that I fainted. I am particularly prone to fainting. It actually runs in my family, and it's a problem that some of us have to be very careful about. Anyway, in today's story, I was roughly 9 years old at the time, and my older brother was old enough to drive. When you're part of a large family, as I am, you learn to say things like my older brother. But anyway, it was going to be a great day. My father had stuff to do, and he didn't want to have to deal with his kids because he needed to get things done. So he said to my brother, "I'm going to give you a bunch of money, take your little sister, and go out and have a great day." And he gave my brother a generous amount of money, and we were allowed to do whatever we wanted. We had access to a car, we had money, and so we started planning. And we had various ideas for fun things that we could do. We decided we would start with miniature golf. We both enjoyed miniature golf, and it would be a fun day. And so we went out to Nunley's, which some of you may know, that has miniature golf and an arcade and some other rides, and started playing our game of golf. And partway through, I started to not feel very well. I started to react to that by sitting down on the grass now and then between my shots and trying to see if I could just keep going. I remember we were exactly at halfway through the game. I think we were actually tied, which is amusing, when it got to the point that I just could not keep going. I told my brother that I wasn't feeling well. I think this may have been the point where I lost vision. I could sort of still see in that I was seeing things, but I wasn't seeing the world. My vision was completely filled with whites and yellows, blocking out everything else from vision. And that was clearly a big problem. So I told my brother that I couldn't see, and he said we should head inside to the arcade where it was air conditioned and he could get me a drink. This was a very good plan. So we started walking toward the arcade. It was not a very far distance to the arcade, but when you are that severely dehydrated and possibly having a reaction to the heat as well, every step feels really, really long. So it felt like we were taking a massively long hike to the arcade. I remember that we managed to get past the miniature golf course and were close to the actual pavement and just a little ways where the arcade was in sight when I started to have really weird sensations. Every time I took a step, it felt like that leg was becoming shorter. I knew it couldn't actually be happening, but it really felt like it was happening. And then it felt like I had no legs left. And then I was lying on the ground, and a bunch of people were asking if I was okay, because when somebody collapses, that draws attention. But I was able to get back up and start heading to the arcade, which was again very, very nearby. For a while, I had wondered about not having any memory of actually getting to the arcade, because my next memory is my brother shaking me awake and asking me if he got me a drink, would I drink it? And I told him that I would. But I was really, really annoyed with him because I was so tired and he was waking me up and he knew that I was so worn out, but he was shaking me awake anyway. This gap would be explained many years later when I asked my brother, because I was having so much difficulty walking, why didn't you just pick me up and carry me? I was a very small child, and my brother was a reasonably strong teenager, and so it seemed like he should be able to carry me. And he responded with, "I did, after the second time you fell." And that's when it clicked for me. I had no memory of the second time I fell. So that was me actually losing consciousness. And him shaking me awake was because I had been unconscious and he wanted to make sure that I became conscious. I would actually learn from future experiences with passing out and this one that there are two indications that I have lost consciousness. One is that gap in my memory, although it's very, very difficult to realize it and understand it at the time. And the second one is the person or people that I am with have suddenly become more anxious and concerned than they had been previously. Whenever I've passed out, it has been a big medical issue. People have been anxious, they have been concerned, but suddenly it feels like they've ramped it up with no cause, and I'm confused with why they're acting this way. And that's generally because that missing piece of information is that I have just passed out. Anyway, my brother went and he got me a drink, an uncaffeinated soda, probably a Sprite or a 7-Up based on what was available at the time. There were very limited options for concessions. And I drank it. And I remember while I was sitting there, he had put me in the very first seat that was possible to put me in the arcade. And that seat was a arcade game. It was a driving game, I think. And so you were in a chair and there was a little steering wheel in front of you. And while I was sitting there and completely unable to get up and function, a woman with a very young child came by. I'm guessing around 3 or 4. And I remember that child looked at the game and said, "I want to play it." And his probably mother said, "She's using it." And this child was so upset and felt like this was such an injustice, saying, "But she isn't even playing it." And his mother said, "I think she needs it more." And she was, of course, correct. But I do feel sorry for that kid. I didn't mean to occupy the game, but I could not get up at that point in time. Anyway, I drank and I sat, and it helped me to feel a lot better. And then we went home, and I felt much, much better. I think I may have eaten some food, and I was feeling fine. I was like, okay, so we still have a good part of the day left. We still have a bunch of money. We had all these wonderful plans. And my brother was insistent, "Nope, you're not going anywhere today. You need to rest. You don't get to go out again." So that was me ruining the day by fainting, and our miniature golf game never got finished. Although I will add one little point that I find interesting, which is my brother mentioned that when I was dehydrated and fainting, apparently my lips went all white. I assume this was all the blood just leaving my lips. And I've always thought that that sounds really neat, and I'm really curious what I look like that. But of course, there was no way for him to take a photograph at the time because people didn't generally carry cameras with them then, and my brother did not. And while I don't know if this has happened to me in the future when I have fainted, I have found that even in a time period when people regularly carry cameras, when you're having a medical emergency, people do not stop to take interesting photographs. Even if I think it would be really cool and neat to see what I look like with white lips, but I have never gotten the chance to see that, and I probably never will. But anyway, that's my story of the first time I fainted, and I would learn from it that I need to make sure that I am well hydrated and ideally have something to eat before I go out. And over time, through various experiences, I have significantly increased my protection against fainting and have a safety protocol that I follow every single time I leave the house now, unless I have to be fasting for medical reasons. So I have significantly decreased my risk of fainting over time and have only failed every now and then. But anyway, that's my story, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please click like, and if you know someone who might find it interesting, by all means share. If you'd like more similar content, then you can subscribe. But most of all, if you have any questions or thoughts or similar stories, then please, I'd love to read your comments. Thank you.